Hello everybody, welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, bringing you a very special video, maybe somewhat of a breaking news video. I've not done a news video in what feels like forever, and it's the way the day has gone. If you've not worked out by the title of the thumbnail, I'm of course talking about today's announcement that Hans Zimmer will be composing the HBO Harry Potter series. I have a lot to say on this. It has completely caught me off guard. There I was working at 4 o'clock, ready to clock off to go get some rest, and then the news broke. There was a press release. There's an article on harrypotter.com, as there is for the announcements, and as someone whose favourite composer is Hans Zimmer, it's safe to say this took me by surprise. I did not think we'd be getting a composer announcement 14 months before the series is going to start airing. I thought this would be something we'd have told by the end of the year, maybe. And I'm going to try and compose my thoughts on that, no pun intended. But before I get into that, you might be wondering, why is he talking about Harry Potter? Why is he doing a news video? Last year, to plug it, I did a lot of videos on the Harry Potter series, the casting announcements, the major announcements on the actors involved. We had our own fan casting a couple of years ago, and we did our own series last year talking about how we'd love to see the books adapted for the HBO series. So I'm going to plug that with the link in the description. And I'm going to be able to talk about... I don't talk about soundtracks off and on here, which is amazing. And if you want some behind-the-scenes politics, we did our Up review yesterday, so we got to talk about Michael Giacchino for a good half an hour. But this time around, I'm going to be talking about Hans Zimmer, not just Hans Zimmer, the other people involved in this. And as I said, it's the first big bit of news for the Harry Potter series. We know it's meant to be filming into like late spring, early summer, and there are obviously varying reports about when the Chamber of Secrets will also start filming. We know at this point in time it's going to be airing in March next year when HBO Max launches in the UK. That's when the Harry Potter series will also begin. So we've still got quite a while to go, which is again why I didn't think we'd be getting this announcement. I'd be thinking we might get some more casting news or some other things first, but no, let's get into it. So as I said, the news has come out of nowhere. It's on the Harry Potter website, and Hans Zimmer is going to be composing the score alongside Bleeding Fingers music. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Bleeding Fingers music, it's not necessarily a household name. It's a collective of composers, and Hans Zimmer's worked with these for many, many years, founded by himself, also Steve Kosky and Russell Emanuel. And these have been people that have been able to get composers, put them through a system, get them experience working on varying productions, to give them more experience, more freedom, and to take on more projects. And whilst that covers a wide majority of people, the two names they've specified alongside Hans Zimmer working on this is Cara Talve and Anze Osman. Probably butchered the pronunciation of them. But what I'm going to say, based off experience, what I've been able to read about them, they have worked previously not just on TV, they've worked with Hans Zimmer as well. So Cara Talve worked on The Tattooist of Auschwitz, which was a show that came out, I think, last year or the year before. Hans Zimmer did the main theme for that. She also worked on Prehistoric Planet, and they've also got Anze Osman, who's also worked on Prehistoric Planet. They're probably the biggest names, and if people are unfamiliar with Prehistoric Planet, it's the Apple documentary series, a bit like Walking with Dinosaurs, if you're interested in that sort of stuff. So obviously making the move into more dramatic stuff, drama roles, and with this being what is intended to be a 7-season series across a 10-year period, I'm not going to jump in the question saying is Hans Zimmer going to compose all 7 seasons, but I would assume that he will be heavily involved throughout, maybe not dedicating 100% of his time to it, but also it raises the questions about what is to come. We believed and assumed that the John Williams themes would stay. Now, maybe the John Williams theme is still going to stay, but if you're bringing Hans Zimmer on board, is he going to play the John Williams theme, or is he going to want to make his own themes, plural, so many characters across multiple seasons? It's a remarkable piece of news, and it's, if I'm totally honest, the biggest name to be attached to this show so far. If you really think about the production cycle of this series, you've obviously had the producers come on board, you've still got David Heyman, you've obviously got people that have been on Harry Potter itself, the films back in the day, but there hasn't been that carryover. And okay, Warwick Davis, of course, is the obvious one in an acting role, but whilst we've had all these other announcements, we're still getting British actors, whether they be young up-and-coming ones like the kids, of course, whether they be thespian ones. Bertie Carvel, who's playing Fudge, I spoke about on the A Night at the Seven Kingdoms review this week, someone who's got a lot of stage work. He hasn't been big in the context of a star or a household name, but this is the show that might make them. So I find it fascinating that for the composer side of things, they've gone to, you could probably say, the second biggest film composer after John Williams. And I think to have that on a HBO series, to get the stamp of approval that you've got Hans Zimmer doing this is a composer who does world tours multiple times across the year. He continues to work on gigantic franchises. He continues to work on original projects. Myself, if you haven't worked out by the hat, is clearly a big fan of Hans Zimmer. My own background with his music, I mentioned at the start, he is my favourite composer. I have been very fortunate in seeing him live 8 times, most of them on his normal tours. Other ones include the James Bond 50th anniversary concert, Interstellar Live at the Royal Albert Hall back in 2015. I've been very fortunate in seeing him, and as far as composers go, he is, as I said, the biggest coup I think that they could have possibly had on this. And it will be interesting to see how committed he is to the series, because as I said, it's a 7-season run. There's a lot of TV to do, and this is a massive name who will have other projects. Now, speaking of other projects, in the press release they've put about Dune Part 3. Well, they've put Dune Part 1 and 2, but we know that Dune Part 3 is releasing this year. We know that he's been involved in some other stuff. He's currently on a campaign to run, being nominated for the Golden Globes for F1. There's a good chance he'll be nominated for the Oscars for F1 as well. So he will be starting to talk red carpet soon. He will be asked probably on interviews. But for me, and what I think, and what I'm looking forward to, I think this is incredible. And I think for what this will do for the series, where you're going to say to people, okay, they're rebooting Harry Potter, a lot of people aren't going to like that for very obvious reasons. And I think when people are going to say, well, Hans Zimmer's doing the music, he's a household name. People who aren't big on film know who Hans Zimmer is. They'll be thinking about his music and what he's contributed to cinema. Maybe you could say it towards TV as well. He has done some TV in the past. He's even done some game stuff with things like Call of Duty back in the day. But this is a massive name, and make no mistake in thinking these are the calibre of people that are still choosing to work on the series. And as a Hans Zimmer fan, you can't see it behind me. I've got basically a shelf full of vinyls. I have probably over half of mine are Hans Zimmer ones. As I said, he's my favourite composer. I collect those records. His music is second to none. I love his approach. I like that even when he's done projects such as Batman, he's chosen to put his own stamp on things. He will get creative and he will be out there. And I think for a fantasy series, for something of Harry Potter, that maybe it's trying to shape the identity of what we've had before with the films, or maybe the games or something else, I think to have him on board is quite wild. As I said, it raises questions about, will they use the John Williams theme, will they not? But for me, this is a scenario I did not see coming. This is a scenario I'm excited for. His approach to music really does lend itself to the variety of seasons they're going to do. If you think about the journey to Hogwarts and the whimsical, the wonder side of things, he can do that. Whereas if you're looking for villainous themes, or he wants something with Voldemort, maybe he wants to bring in the Death Eaters or do something for the Dementors, he's going to have a completely different approach to what we've seen before. Maybe he wants to sort of work on a couple of seasons and then pass on to the other talent. Maybe, who knows, it's too early to tell, but this is the first real big bit of news we've had for the HBO series this year, and that's kind of how I'm going to talk about this. I could talk so much more on Hans Zimmer. It'd be my absolute intention to do so, but then I'd be just extending the video for no reason. But if anyone is curious, if anyone unfamiliar with what I do, what I speak about, everyone that knows me knows that Time is my favourite piece of music ever written. It is a beautiful piece of music, and I'd like to see how he can approach a show like this that will give him opportunities to make music such as that, to give him creative freedoms, and to also contribute to what will be probably the biggest show of the next decade. And that's kind of where I'm going to round out with this. It's a weird one to talk about, one I didn't think to talk about. I will be talking about Hans Zimmer later on this year on the channel, when we get to Dune Part 3. There's absolutely some plans already, I'm allowed to say, on bringing back a very special guest for that. But that's December, maybe earlier, maybe later, who knows. But that is me rounding out. So, as I said, that's the big bit of Harry Potter news. Maybe when there's a trailer or something coming soon, you'll have me talking about it. I won't do videos for the sake of them. It has to be actual real news, big scale announcements, and this is that. It's another franchise that Hans Zimmer is contributing to, and absolutely fair play to him. So that's where I round out. Thank you all so much for watching. As I said, you can check out some videos on the playlist if you're interested. If you're not, that's fine. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.